I think your conference is important in terms of awakening people's interest in a specific literary theme which is intrinsically interesting and which has wide ramifications and is of relevance not just to literature but to a whole host of other disciplines as well. Yes, I agree very strongly. I think what one finds, again, throughout the world is that literature, the arts, are being marginalized in programs of higher education because those in power and those who can dictate to ministries of education, to universities, are simply unaware of the rationale for or the reasons for art and literature thriving within society. There have been various polemics and discussions in British universities reflecting on precisely this issue. In England, for example, you have an arts council. An arts council, Majlis Pasar Kesenian, is an institution supported by the government, by government funding, which gives sponsorship to various theatrical groups, dance companies, to artists, and so on. These groups, which the Arts Council support, could not survive unless there was state support of one kind or another. So the Arts Council plays a very important role in encouraging the development and flourishing of the arts. Now, under this present government, and I should say not only under the present Conservative government, even under the Labour government before it, the subsidy to the Arts Council has been reduced. And the reason it's been reduced is because the government says we cannot afford to give the arts so much money. The arts are not so important as other institutions which we have to support in order to get the economy going, etc. And of course, that reduction of the subsidy to the Arts Council has meant a depletion. It's meant an impoverishment in the cultural life of the country, in Britain. And that too has raised a lot of controversy. There is an LSM, an NGO, called the Centre for Cultural Learning, headed by a man called David Puttnam. David Puttnam is a film director who made the film that you probably know that he made is Chariots of Fire. Have you heard of the film Chariots of Fire? It's a film about the Olympics in 1920. Very famous film. And it's going to be shown, of course, in London before the Olympics this year as well. But David Puttnam is a very respected figure in the arts world. And he and the Centre for Cultural Learning commissioned a report in which they investigated the role that culture and the arts played and the significance, and this is important, the significance of arts and cultural education for the general public, in particular for children in schools and people in universities. And what this report found was that people who had been exposed to cultural performance, who had participated in arts activity in school and later, were far more likely to be good citizens than those who had no cultural training, no cultural exposure whatsoever. They were better citizens in terms of being more active in their participation in the local community, more active in voting for parties and governments, more active in philanthropical activities, in charitable activities. In other words, they were much more civic-minded, much more community-oriented than those who had not had a cultural, had any exposure to cultural ideas and to the arts and to performance. So what Putnam was saying in that report was it is a very short-sighted move of the government to reduce these subsidies for the Arts Council, because in the long run, society will be much more fragmented, the people in the society will be less committed as citizens than if you try to create a sense of collectivity through encouraging people to participate in the arts and taking an interest in the arts. Now, the same thing goes, of course, not only what applies in England also applies here in Indonesia, that the more people become involved in the arts and in performance, in the appreciation of music, cinema, paintings, the more they will feel a closer sense of solidarity. So in Indonesia now, I know there's a great deal of discussion about the need to sustain and create the nation's character, the watak bangsa. Unfortunately, those who talk about the decline of national character and who want to restore a sense of collective solidarity have no idea of the way they should go about it. And in particular, they have no idea of the importance of programs of education in the arts and literature and the contribution that those programs can make to the creation of a national character and to the creation of a sense of solidarity among communities. What they feel is that the economy is the sole measure of a country's success. Now, you and I know that economic success cannot be an adequate measure. We can think of many prosperous countries in the world, right, which we would in no way judge as successes because of the way in which people within those societies treat each other, right, the way in which there are disparities between the wealthy and the poor, the collapse of any kind of sense of civic virtue and national morality. These are very prosperous countries. Now, Indonesia could follow that same liberal capitalist road to prosperity. But if it does it at the expense of the arts, if it tries to make the arts simply instrumental in creating wealth, then the direction of the country will be misguided. The people who put those policies into practice will have led the country to ruin in terms of moral collapse, if you like, at the same time as they think that they're leading the country to economic prosperity.